Well, I guess that I am fashionably late, yeah? I came in on 4:32. I'm part of the 4:32 movement. You ever hear about that? Frequencies at 4:32. Yeah, buddy, I got to take my tinfoil hat off. How's everybody doing? Hope you're all well. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be anywhere these days. Above ground and breathing on my own. I guess that's definitely something to be thankful for. Am I right? So, anyhow, what we're going to do today and what I promised was we're going to talk about groove. So, what's this whole thing about groove in the pocket? All right, so for all the younger drummers who are here, groove is like a groove is an idea. Think about it. What is a groove? A groove is a notch, or it's a slot that you can that things fit into. In this case, music would fit into this particular groove. So, when you're playing a groove, it makes sense to start with something that everyone can latch onto. Now, there's a couple of things to consider. There's the musicians that you're playing with, and there's also the crowd for whom you're playing. So if you've got a real appreciative sort of, listening type audience who's into your music and who, understands like if it's technical stuff, people will understand the concept of what you're doing. That's great. You can play all kind of crazy stuff, but if you're trying to get people and get them like on a basic level, you got to start with something, sort of simple and zoomed out. Now, I that whole concept, less is more. Okay, yeah. I mean, in a sense it is, but less is less. If you're going to bring less, you're going to get, it's going to, you got to take that energy and put it somewhere is what I'm saying. So, that being said, that doesn't mean to hit lesser or to, play less notes. I mean, yes, it does mean play less notes, actually. It means, if you want to think about it in sort of a different way, if you're artistically inclined, draw lines with a Sharpie rather than with a tiny number 3 pencil, so everybody can see the lines. You get one of those big fat chisel point markers, the Sharpie, and you sketch out a line with that. Yeah, you can't get too crazy with it, because it'll just start, blobbing out on you. But the thing is that you're going to create a nice, dark, defined line that people can stand in and groove, or they can get their groove on. That's what I should say. They can groove too. Groove is a noun and a verb, and an adjective in this case. So, let me play a couple of things here for you, just as far as, setting up a groove. What would constitute a groove? So let me just set something down here. Okay, now that's something that most people can grasp onto. If you got something like this right here, musically that was valid. It was sort of an oddball sort of sounding thing, but it takes you a few minutes to get your ear, takes a few go-arounds to get your ear around something like that. So, because of, like if you're playing in a bar if you're in a bar band and you're playing in front of a bunch of people and you want to try to grab them, then which is going to stand out and get the majority of the people? Now, if you played groove number B or groove letter B, the second one I just did, all the prog rock heads would get up and go, "Oh yeah, this is cool," and you'd appeal to them. But how many prog rock? There's a lot of prog rock fans, but I mean, how many are in a given bar on any given night? Not disparaging prog rock, no way, no how, because I loves me some prog rock. If your idea is to try to gather people and gather ears, then the best thing to do is going to be start with something that's easily attainable for people to dig into. So there's that. That's pretty much what a groove is. A groove is a musical term that it's like a beat or a sketch. Like you could take like something like a mnemonic. That's what it is. An onomatopoeia, I guess that would be. And you can turn that into, say, like bucket of fish. Bucket of fish. Bucket of fish. So bucket of fish, catfish, bucket of fish, catfish, ham on rye. I like to use food in my terms. I like to come up with different silly sayings revolving around food. But I used to have this one tune, and this is more of like a chant. The chant is it's sort of, the first part's in 7 and the second part's in 10. So it's like boom da 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 da. Da 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 da. Okay, so you hear that da 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 da, and then da 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 da. So the second time through, it does it twice. Da the bucket of fish. I'm gonna get me a bucket of fish. I'm gonna get me a bucket of fish. A bucket of fish. And what else was it? God, it was so funny. I'm gonna get me a bucket of fish. I'm gonna get me a bucket of fish. Stronger than dirt. I'm going to get me a bucket of fish. I'm going to get me a bucket of fish stronger than dirt. I'm going to get me a bucket of fish. I'm going to get me a bucket of fish stronger than dirt. So if I play that on the drums, I get this. And so from there, you can take that and start to expand on it and open it up around the kit a little bit. Let me just kind of sketch on that some. That's why I don't put drinks up here usually. It's usually my laptop, which is in the shop right now. But that's okay. Yeah, drinks on the floor, fellas. No drinks on the table. Because I'm so damn clumsy. I reach around here, all my stuff goes flying. Okay, let's try that again. I can go all day on that. But the idea is to get something you can stand up in, you know. You want to get something that you can hear internally. Now, this is going to help a lot of you guys or a lot of you guys and girls who are playing clubs, you know, and you can't hear anything. The best thing to do is to hear the song in your head. So, like, if you're in a situation that, you know, many drummers find themselves in, you can't hear the rest of the band. You can't hear what's going on. And it might not be something that can be fixed at that moment, but you got to soldier on, you got to play. So what you have to do is you just have to revert to playing what you can hear. And if you can't hear the rest of the band, then what you got to do is you got to play the song from inside. You got to play the song from within. So if I was to play Rosanna by Toto right now, I'm just going to play up like the intro and all that, probably all the way up to the second verse. So I'll do it right now. Yep. So I'm hearing Rosanna in my head, and that's why I kind of glitched out in the beginning, because I was trying to, like, remember, did the vocals come in 4 or 8 times? So, see, thinking can, like, mess you up, man. It can obstruct your flow. So when your heart's beating, you don't think about, you know, what's my heart doing right now? You know, your heart is like doing its thing. You don't have to think about it. It's involuntary. It's completely off to its own. It's a system that overrides everything else. You do not have to think about your heartbeat. Well, God, I hope you don't have to. If you have a pacemaker or something like that, yeah, you kind of do. So, but in general, your heart is an involuntary muscle, and so that's kind of where you want your grooves to end up. You want to try to make those as involuntary as possible. So when you sit down and play music, you don't think about anything. Now, so there's a movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and there's a famous scene in there. Look it up, The Bridge of Death. And so, the premise is King Arthur and his band of knights show up to the Bridge of Death, and they can't get across. There's this little trollish man who makes them, answer 3 questions in order to cross the Bridge of Death. And so the first guy comes up, and he says, well, what's your name? He says, my name is Sir Galahad. He says, what is your favorite color? And he says, green. He says, what is whatever the last question was? And he gets it right. And he's like, okay, off you go. And so the second guy comes up, and he's like a little more cocky. He's like, oh, that's easy. Says, what's your name? Sir Robin. Well, what is your quest? To seek the Grail. That was it. The second was the quest. What is your quest? What is your favorite color? And he says, he goes, what is the weight of a fully laden swallow? And he says, what was it, African or European? No, shit, I'm blowing it here. I'm messing it up. But anyway, the second guy that shows up gets cocky, and he gets thrown off the bridge because he's too full of himself. The third guy comes up, and he makes it through fine. And then finally, King Arthur comes up and then owns the bridge keeper, and he ends up flying off. See, I just can't tell a joke to save my freaking sorry skin, right? Anyways, that's a good analogy. It's a good lesson in how not to think too hard in any given moment. You want to try to turn everything into sort of like an involuntary action. So when you're playing a groove, you don't have to think about it. Now, what are some other ways that are going to get us to a point where we can play grooves better? So what can give you a little more flexibility, I've found, is by starting to learn to play open-handed. Now, a lot of drummers are confounded by this because playing open-handed means that you're using your left hand on the hi-hat. Now, there's a reason why we use our right hand as a lead hand, is because most people are right-handed. Most people are going to, use the right hand to drive the time. So the time, gets carried by the right hand, but most people who are right-handed, their left hand is kind of, a little bit deficient. So, my solution to that is, first of all, start using your left hand more. You got to socialize it. Start brushing your teeth with your left hand, and do it without cramming the toothbrush down your throat. It's kind of weird at first. Pick up your coffee with your left hand, or, your drink or whatever. Do more things with your left hand than you normally would. And that'll start to get your left hand used to doing, more, day-to-day things. So when I sat down and started practicing open-handed playing, just get a book like Funky Primer or something like that and go through the exercises. Or sit down and just try to play a song open-handed, just play simple beats. And as you go through it, you start discovering that your left hand has a lot of funky things to say, because it usually plays on the... Think about that right there, disco, 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4, and your right hand's going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and your left hand's going 1 E and 2 E, 3 E, 4 E, 1 E, 2 E, 3 E. So if you go... So 1 E and the 2 E and the 3 E and the 4 E and the 1 E and the 2 E and the 3 E and the 4. That's another thing that's going to help your groove. Counting. Counting is the thing that's going... If there was ever a cheat code for playing music, all you gamers, you're looking for a cheat code, counting and learning to count subdivisions, well, it's the same thing. Counting subdivisions is the thing that's going to give you so much flexibility over your playing, because you give every one of those places that you can play an address. Think about this. You're driving a car every day down a road, and there's all these driveways, but there's no street addresses. There's no numbers there, So basically you just see all these driveways cut in. You don't think much about them. But then you start realizing, there's got to be some identifier to these. And then you realize, there's addresses. And then all of a sudden when you realize there's an address there, you give it some sort of symbol that says this is what this is, then all of a sudden it makes more sense, and then you can, Google up whatever you're looking for if you're trying to find, some weird widget for your drum kit or for your, special furniture for, you and the woman, those special furniture things that you can buy on the internets. Yeah, but there's that. Anyways, so if, you go 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. So here, the eighth note, just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I want to play the bell on the ride cymbal on the ands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. See, that gives it definition. So counting is the thing that's going to give everything that you play some sort of identity. Okay, so moving on. Groove it's sort of a broader concept. Now, the other thing, let's talk about pocket. Pocket. Oh, man. Most people wouldn't know pocket if they were choking on lint. Oh! I can't say most people. No, the thing is this. Okay, so groove is, kind of like it's a term that means, the pattern that you're doing or the way something feels. Pocket, the way I see it, is the way that what we do as drummers relates to the music. Now, I've learned a lot of things when I've been playing to this project that I'm a participant in. It's a band called The Odd Get Even. We've never performed live, but basically the way the songs start out is I play a drum solo. I play a song in my head to a tuneless whistle, basically, and I just kind of play through the changes and create like a framework for other people to step in and add melodic content. So it's a collaborative effort for certain. So my friend Bill Cornish in Chicago, just outside of Chicago, we've been doing this project for about 14 years now. I just realized, theoddgeteven.com. And all of these songs start out as drum solos. Most of the stuff I did without a click track, but some of the stuff I did with a click track. And one of the things that I've learned is having to go back. He sent me the tracks. He sent me the albums without the drums in them. So what I'm having to do is go back in and retrace all of my steps, like where I pushed and pulled and give, sort of a, it's not linear. It's not like you put on a click track and go, because there is no click track. And so the new school solution to that would be to take the drum part, put it into something like Logic, and then do the time corrections. But doing something like that's going to take away from the feel. It's sort of it can just sort of sterilize it, So the idea is to be able to play around the surges and the pushes and pulls, and in some cases there's extra bars or an extra beat here or there, and so that adds to the kind of mystique and uniqueness of the thing that is being played. So were I to sit down and go into try to sit down and play it metronomically across, just keeping solid steady time, that's not going to work. It's not going to honor the song. I have to bend where it bends. I have to surge forward where it surges forward, and that's like the new frontier for me as far as learning how to play with other musicians and learning how to play, make a song feel good. And one of the things I tell people, if you want to get your time together, start practicing with a metronome. That's for certain, and counting, definitely, because the subdivisions, you start getting inside them a little deeper every time. But the thing is if you really, really, really want to get your time together, go take a gig with a blues band. The more bottom feeder, the better. I mean, the one where one person's rushing, the other person's dragging, and the one that's paying everybody and who wants the music where they want it is drunk, and they're, everybody's following that person. So, that being said, if you join a band, something like that, but the thing is you have to go in with your deck stacked already. If you go in calibrated, that's a good way to put it. Sitting down and practicing with a metronome. Because learning how to play with a metronome, burying the click and all that, that's easily attained. Well, not easily, but it's, over time you get better and better at it. But learning how to bend yourself around pre-existing songs and how things float and ebb, that's kind of the tricky part right there. I've been talking to the wrong camera the entire time, hadn't I? I got to remember to look at my thing. Yep, the cup says it all, man. Love our coffee around these parts. This is Seattle, man. What do you expect, right? So, all right. So, Pocket. Let's talk about a little more about Pocket here. I'm going to play a couple of tunes. Actually, I'm going to play just like the intro to a couple of songs. And let's see if you can tell which one it was done with a click and which one was done without a click. As soon as I can find my music. Okay. I'm going to play a little bit of this one right here. Okay, that was track number 1. Let's do track number 2. So one of these was played with a click, one of them is not. Let's do number 2. Not you. So, could you hear the difference between the time in each of those tracks? Except for my big, well, I won't tell you where my mistakes were. Oh, man. Jim says, I'm learning to say goodbye to the metronome as collective song interpretation within the group. Can do so. Great to see it in action. Yeah, man. The thing about playing to a click, I think that's something that everyone should do on their own time. Is to spend time playing to a click track to get calibrated. It's definitely about that. That's one of the pre-prep things. It's like, think about it. When you go to your rehearsal, you don't go there and take a shower at their house and, maybe you do. But, you're there kind of for a purpose, right? And that purpose is to show up. And really the secret to rehearsal is this. If you keep this in mind, you'll always be in demand. Rehearsal is where you go to learn other people's parts. You should know your stuff going in all the way. And so when you sit down and work with a metronome on your own time, that's like setting your clock. It's like setting your watch. And you're just, you're getting that development of that pulse. Some people have it a little more innately. Other people have to work at it. I had to work at it. I really did. My time was like this. And my kid, man, he sits down and plays a groove. It's like straight. It's like flying a freaking. So, speaking of flying, a friend of mine is a pilot for a news station down in San Diego. And one time he asked me, he says, do you want to go and fly from San Diego up to Carlsbad with me in the Bird? And I was like, hey, yeah. And I brought a friend, my kid's godfather. We took the helicopter and rode up, it was about a 50-mile trip. Simple little thing, going up the 5 freeway in Southern California. And I was telling my friend Kyle, who was flying, and I'm like, dude, come on, let's go out over the ocean and do some whoop-de-doos or something. Come on, put my stomach in my throat. Come on, man, I dare you. And he's like, oh, no, we're not going to do anything like that. He says, first of all, the FAA wouldn't allow it. We have a flight path we have to keep. And second thing is, this is where I differ from other helicopter pilots. He says, we could be up here. He says, I'm used to flying reporters. They, some of them get real seasick, motion sickness and all that. So my specialty is I make them feel like they're on the ground. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. He says, we could be up here in 80-mile-an-hour winds, and they wouldn't know it because I'm holding the thing so steady. He says, that's the kind of pilot I want to be. And I was like, well, it's the kind of drummer I want to be. Think about it. When you're on stage with a band and somebody's rushing ahead or they're, lagging, bass players, don't set your amplifier too far away from the drummer. And not because, it's, because of the, there's latency that occurs. So like when you play a note, sound doesn't travel as fast as you think. So if your bass amp is like way on the other side of the stage and the guitar player's way on the other side of the stage, man, you know what? You're going to be in hell the entire night because it's going to feel like everything's rushing and dragging because the bass player is going to feel laggy and the guitar player is going to feel lagging. They're going to think you're dragging. So if you tighten everything up, get that band, to where everybody's kind of a small package like that, then he said package. Then you'll definitely be able to hear one another better, and there won't be any latency. So that's something that's going to help your overall experience as a group by just setting up a little tighter together. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you that second song, Return to Babylon, that one was the one done without a click. The first one, Fool in April, the shuffle, I did that with a click track. It was definitely, it had to have been, I know I did. Because I would go in the studio and record tracks for my friend, for his projects, and then he would do me in return. He would, spend an hour or something and let me just lay down idea after idea after idea, and so that's what I did, and that's what ended up on the Odd Get Even album. So Okay, so that's pocket. Now let's talk about kind of a moving target. So the whole thing about when people, like, the new school way of doing things is, if somebody does a song, they play a tune on the guitar with, the emotion and the push pull that they're invoking within that song structure. Some producers will take that song, put it in the Logic, and do all the time correction, so where everything is perfectly metronomic. It just follows that very strict click. They grid it out. Well, the songwriter comes back and says, hey, man, the mix is great, but, dude, what happened to my song? It's like, it doesn't sound like me. It sounds kind of sterile and doesn't have, like, the same emotion. So, I say so a lot, don't I? So. I need a so filter. Sofa King. Idiotic sometimes. So, now I'm going to trip myself out. I'm just going to play a song, okay? Oh, dear. Oh, so dear. Oh, stop it, Billy. This one's called Objects in Motion, and I had to go back in and relearn all these mistakes so I could play the song properly. That's what I was getting at, is this tune right here is completely nonlinear, and it's got all kind of fun little pushes and pulls and quirks to it that make it sort of fun, and you can dance to it if you want. So, if I can't see you, but if you're dancing, that's good. Let's do this thing. It's called Objects in Motion, off the second Odd Get Even album of the same title. You can hear in there, man. If you've got any sense of time, you can hear the surges and pushes. And so, you know, I added a couple of extra bonus mistakes, but I did play most of my mistakes that I had initially made that the track was built around. I managed to play most of them correctly. There's that one fill in the middle that starts like, let's see if I could play it from memory. I love that. I don't even know where that came from. And see, that's the beauty of making mistakes. Sometimes there's a lot of magic that lives within mistakes. And if you, first time I heard that track, I was like, oh, man, I can't handle that. But it's kind of cool in a way, too, because it sounds like I created some, nifty, cool drum fill. But really what it was is that I was just out of time. in one spot, in one or two spots. And that's kind of how that worked. What are we going to do now? This next song is I want to illustrate kind of like inserting small devices within your groove to make a little more excitement, like an odd placed snare note, an odd placed accent. It can really sort of liven things up. This next tune, if I played it I could play it completely straight through, like 2 and 4, and it'd be fine. But the way that I initially played this groove was with a few like oddball snare hits in there, and it really served the purpose of the tune well. So I'm going to try doing that one. This is called On the Run. Well, that was certainly fun. I really do like that song a lot. So, it would be remiss of me to skip the whole concept of playing ahead or behind the beat. Now, what does that mean? What do you mean playing ahead of the beat? Well, when you play ahead of the beat, it makes the song sound like it's rushed. If you play if you play behind the beat, it makes the song feel as if it's a little bit more relaxed. This is the perfect song to illustrate that. This is a tune by a gentleman named Simeon Flick. It's called Onus, and it's a nice kind of grindy thing in 12/8. I'm going to start it out by playing it ahead of the beat a little bit, okay? And then I'm going to slow it. Not slow it, but I'm going to hold back, and I want to get to the back side of the beat by the time we get to, when we get to the chorus. I'm going to play the verse ahead, and then I'm going to lay the chorus back so you can hear the contrast. And then I'll play the next verse behind the beat, and I'll play the next chorus ahead of the beat. How's that? Does that sound like a good deal? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's do that.
I got something on my mind. Can you spare a little time and listen for a while? Swaying on me, it's flaying me wide open, and I sure could use some empathy. Won't you help me with the onus, the onus? Won't you help me with the onus, the onus? Oh, have mercy. My back is so cold, where I shoulder the load. My eyes are stone dry from all the years I've cried. I need relief. If you just lend me your ear, I swear I'll be brief. Swear I'll be brief, yeah. Won't you help me with the onus, the onus? Won't you help me with the onus, the onus? Oh, I know you got your own catastrophe, but you gotta see this is killing me. since you'll spare a little time and listen for a while. Lean in, I'll tell you. Lean in, I'll tell you. Lean in, I'll tell you.
Sorry about that. So I tried to demonstrate throughout that song the places that was, you could kind of tell where I was pushing ahead and where I was pulling back because of body language mostly. When I'm pulling back, I'm like doing the big, broad, wide, sweeping strokes like that. And when I'm trying to push ahead, I get, a little more like edge of the seat, jumpy. And you could tell the contrast between the two sides of that. The head of the beat. That song it doesn't feel good ahead of the beat. It just doesn't. It sounds too pushy. It sounds rushed. The best way to play that song is to play it as far behind the beat. You could almost be late. As a matter of fact, I was trying to get as late as I could. That's something you should do. If you play along to music, any kind of music tracks, do your best to drag behind the beat, to let the downbeats occur just a little ahead of you, just to feel what it feels like. You want to feel that extremity. It's like this. Take both of your hands and clench them as tight as you can in front of you and hold it. Just hold that tension. You're just tight like that. Okay, now shake them out and loosen up. That's the difference right there. The way your hands feel when they're completely loose. So if you grip your sticks really tight and hold on to them and then grip your sticks really loose. You should always try to be loose. So I think that's probably a good, nice, solid hour-long drum lesson, I do believe, on Groove, and I would like to keep it as close as I can to an hour just for this format. I've been playing drums all day. I'll be back most likely tomorrow at some point. I've got some things to do. We may be here at 4:30. We may not, but just check my channel here and see if we are. I know I've been a little bit loose on the YouTube side of things lately because I've been over in Facebook land just kind of soaking up the glamour and glitz and glory of having 9 people show up. Woohoo! But here we've got 7, and so I hope to see, more people show up. If any of this stuff reaches you, if you like it, if you took something from it, karma's a beautiful thing, and I've got a little digital tip jar there. You could throw me a cup of coffee. If you literally could throw me a cup of coffee, I would catch it because I like coffee. You can just leave, drop a little piece in the pot there, and that would be very cool. And if it indeed reached you and gave you some inspiration, I just do this out of the goodness of my heart. And I'm just trying to help people out. So I'm a working musician, and currently the clubs are all closed. So I appreciate each and every one of you for showing up. It's very kind. Jim Colarusa, you rock, dude. Drums for Success, thank you. Person with the name that I cannot pronounce because it's Chinese characters, I'm so sorry. But thank you for showing up. Ni hao. I know that. Zaijian, I know that. Yeah, well, okay. I lived in Taipei for a little while. It was kind of fun. All right, well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and pack her in here. Peace, love, chicken grease, wash your damn hands, drink lots of vitamin C, and love one another. How's that? That's a good one, yeah? Okay, see you soon. Soonish. As soon as I see you. Bye.